This is a message to all my supporters of this podcast. I'm introducing a new supporters program. You can contribute a small amount as a one-off payment to show your love for this podcast. Thank you in advance for all your contributions. I just wanted to let you know before we start the podcast that I am doing an online podcast course, how to be able to create, get your guests, scale it and monetize it. So please do go to abmpodcastcourse.co.uk and go into the contact us bit. I'm looking for new people to be able to be a podcast creator and really to be able to develop their skills and knowledge into a podcast. So as I said, go to abmpodcastcourse.co.uk and sign up. Thanks.
This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast, created and hosted by Mark Haywood. This podcast will interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and people in their careers. We will delve into their journey to success, key life milestones, and go deep into their area of expertise. This podcast will help to inspire and educate you with great guests. So get ready to learn from other successes and failures. Today we have Deb Coviello, who is a founder of Illumination Partners and the host of Drop-In CEO podcast. Now, this is our second interview, Deb. So how are you? How are you doing?
Mark, I'm doing great. It's a Monday. I'm doing what I love. It's a beautiful fall day out in the U.S. Children are fine. Everybody's healthy. I'm having a good day. Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. So today we're going to explore the similarities, the differences, your views on mentors, coaches, and masterminds. So we're going to sort of cover this sort of breadth of areas, because I really want to drill down into what you think of the different types of support that we can get as entrepreneurs. So first question is, do you have a coach or a mentor at the moment?
So thank you for that question. Honestly, I have about 3 mentors, and not people that I stay connected with on a regular basis, but just people that have my back. So they'll see me on social media, they'll see me on my podcast, and they'll very gently tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Deb, I really like that." Or, "Hey, Deb, you might want to change that here." And they are kind, sincere people that have my back. And I had one particular person, I'll shout out to Dave Hasse. I just had dinner and wine with him this weekend. And I remember him saying in the beginning, I said, "All I want to do is see you be successful. That's my success, to see you successful." And these people just have my back. And they have probably been some of the best inspiration, other than my husband, to do course corrections along the way. And it's been very helpful, even if I don't like what they say in the beginning. I always think about it because it comes from a place of kindness and goodness, and there's always something good in it. So they haven't steered me wrong, and I can connect with them anytime I want, any time in the journey.
And are they, it doesn't sound like they're paid for. It sounds like people you've met along your journey and sort of give you advice and sort of suggestions.
Yeah, I have found some wonderful people in my life that have been already successful in their own right. They have also loved helping others, up-and-coming leaders. And I just came into their life. They found me. I found them. We got to know each other on a personal level, on the phone or through a Zoom or even in person. And from the day one, whatever it was in what they saw in me, they just wanted to help me. On the first time, first date, whatever you want to call it, the guy gave me a book and signed it and just said, I'm here to help you. Another person, great conversation. And anytime I need to just say, I need to bounce some things off you, he is always there for me. So they're beautiful spirits that just want to see me succeed because they've already realized success and they want to leave their legacy through others.
Okay, so interestingly, you called them mentors. So they are. We'll talk about a definition for coach and mentor in a minute, but just on that. So as a mentor, they are more experienced. They've sort of done have they done things that you are aiming to aspire to, and they sort of help you along the way? Is that how it works?
Absolutely. I would say 2 out of the 3 of them are probably 10 years older than me. So they've done the corporate thing and they see the handwriting on the wall, or they are in tune with my talents and see some things that I can't see. So they really provide me a great perspective and help me to believe what I can be, even more so, because I already have a very positive business mindset, but they just expand my mind. And then occasionally there's a couple other people that are about the same age as me, also having been through business. And again, they just want to share their knowledge with me and make me think and push me to my limits, to the point where I'll get there someday, but but thank you for giving me this. And then when I arrive at a point where, hey, I took your advice, look at what I'm doing, their chests are puffed out. They feel so wonderful to be part of my process. And if nothing else, that's the joy that they get out of that relationship. It's a really strong personal investment in another human being.
So I'm interested. Would you ever pay for a mentor if you wanted something specific, maybe something, I don't know where your areas that your mentors help you with, but I don't know, say you want to do another podcast on something else, or even, I don't know, write a book or something like that. Would you actually go out of your way and invest in a paid mentor, or do you think that the relationship's better when it's evolving?
So you've got me at a perfect time. I would call those people coaches because, and I've also looked up the definition because I struggle between what is a coach and what is a mentor. And both have all your best interests at heart. Coaches, as I see and based on the definition, are more short-term. You have a particular goal or objective to get to at a particular time frame, and you are also very clear on that goal and objective, but you don't have the experience or you need somebody to hold you accountable. And I have and continue to hire a few coaches through areas that I don't know how to navigate. I have the mindset of what I want to do, but I'm not sure how to get there. So I need that. And I have and will pay for that kind of service.
And if you don't mind sharing, what was the last area that you chose to get a coach, a paid coach, to help you
on? Last one. Right now, it is in my email marketing, social media marketing, and elevating my brand. Because I don't know, I know who I am, I know my talking points, I know what I stand for, but how to project that in a way that resonates with people, I may have blinders on. And so somebody that can look at me and say, Deb, we need more of you to come out, not just your business talking points. We need you to start telling more stories about why you are the drop-in CEO. Wow, great advice. Well, can you give me a framework on how to do that? Okay, bullet 1, bullet 2, bullet 3. Write your story and then start telling it. Oh my goodness, I know myself, but I can't see how to do those things unless I get experience and an external view. I pay money for that, and the results are amazing. With the caveat, you have to be on the same page. There's a lot of experts out there that say, pay me X and I'll get you Y. You have to have really strong relationships, I would say almost on the level of being a mentor, because they actually get inside your head. They understand how you feel. They almost become your voice and become you. So it's a coach because you have a specific goal, but you're a deep understanding for the right one.
So how would you define coach and mentor? Because I actually think we have a slightly different definition, which is going to be interesting to explore.
I can't wait for it.
What would you say your definition of both of them are?
The mentor is in it for the long haul, for a long-term relationship, 6 months, a year, 5 years. They're always there, just like an old friend that you haven't picked up the phone in a long time, but you pick up the phone 6 months later, it's like you never missed a beat. The coach would be very nice to have a long-term relationship, and maybe you do. I'm still early in my journey, so I do hire people for very specific goals. So a coach is to help me get over a certain hurdle that I can't myself, but more I'd say on the technical side. The mentor is a little bit, I'd say, on the mental side. of being able to see possibilities, thinking bigger than where I'm at. Whereas the coach might say, if you need to get bigger, X, Y, and Z. A little bit more prescriptive, I think, versus discovery on the mentor side. So go ahead.
No, it's really interesting because so I had a mentor for about 6 years who helped me through my career, and he's actually an entrepreneur himself, and he gave me a great deal of support and was amazing for my sort of development. Now, I called him a mentor because he was someone who helped me strategy-wise, operationally, like sort of, he would say, I'd talk to him about a situation, and he said, when you're in that situation, do X, Y, and Z. So for me, a mentor is someone who's more experienced, has done possibly the same thing as what you've done, is further down the line, and they are there to guide, suggest, build you to be the best person you can. A coach, for me, is slightly different. They are a qualified, trained coach. A coach is very different because the coach is more someone who listens and asks questions and gets you to that sort of aha moment where you suddenly go, oh, so what I've been banging my head up against the wall for the last 6 weeks actually is this. And the coach for me is more of a self-exploration, where a mentor is someone who's a little bit more prescriptive and a little bit more, you should do that or that. Now, I only say this because I've done some coaching, some actual training to be a coach, and they were very much thought of themselves not as therapists, but more on the sort of therapist side of listening, asking questions, getting people to build their brand or their expertise or their knowledge, where a mentor is someone a bit more prescriptive.
So this is really interesting because I mentor about 5 people right now, and depending on the situation, I will ask them open-ended questions to get them to think, because unless they discover what's inside or how they feel, we can't progress. So you have to start in that questioning place. But then once the mind is open, I feel like maybe I flip to the coach. I've seen this. May I suggest or propose that? Would you consider this because I have the experience that this will get you this kind of result? What do you think about that? So it's almost a blend. It depends on almost where the mentee or the coachee is. Do they need a mentor or a coach? Do they need somebody to open up your mind to possibility? And then once you're open to possibility and suggestion, then the coach or that other persona comes in to start suggesting tactical ways to get to where you want.
I think the coachee or mentee is the person that really drives that agenda on what they actually need. And if they need prescriptive descriptions on what they need to think about, that's more mentor. If they need to ask lots of questions and build people and get them to that space, that's a coach. It's a really interesting thing. And I've had 2 trainings on coaching, 2 different methodologies, and I'm actually getting trained on this Thursday on a 3rd methodology. And the interesting thing that I've found on working on different methodologies are exactly as you say. When I'm coaching someone, I'm using a blended version. I'm not so prescriptive to X or Y. I'm actually flexing it depending on what that person actually needs, and it gives you. And I actually think that actually a couple of different methodologies is a really helpful way, because you can flex your style to what that person wants. One of my people that I'm helping, I'm very much a mentor in telling him the steps he needs to think about to get to where he wants to go. But actually, I'm working with someone who I've just had a call today with, and we've signed up and we've made an agreement. And she just wants to explore her values, what she stands for, a little bit more, which she wants a shoulder to bounce ideas off, which is more of in my mind, a coach. So I think you're right. I think having that ability to be able to blend both styles is incredibly important for you, that role as a mentor and coach.
Then I would just ask you a question. So being a mentor, being able to flex to the needs to the mentee, whether it's discovery or prescriptive information, then what would you, maybe in your world, if I hire somebody, like the next person they may hire is a book coach, because I know I can write content, but the process to get through to the finish line, I don't have those skills. Is that a consultant? Is that a coach?
Well, the whole book thing is a really interesting thing. I've been back and forth with writing a book, and someone said to me, I was doing my podcast course, and someone was saying to me, you need to write a book. And I'm like, well, yeah, but, and he's like, no, think about it. If you're an author, that comes from the word authority, and you become an authority on a subject when you write a book. And I've been toying around with this. This was about, about 3 months ago he said this. And I've been toying about with this. And I'm at the moment, I'm not in the right place because I've got a lot of content, podcasts, and I'm going to flex a little bit more on social media and do videos and content. And I get more instant, I suppose it's gratification. I feel good about myself doing videos and podcasts to share and have conversations and showcase other people. That a book doesn't really do that. You're sort of telling someone the 101 ways to do this, or the prescription. And I've read a couple of really good books recently. And some of them are quite prescriptive, and some of them are quite like my own story and autobiographies and stuff, and biographies. And I'm back and forth with this. So if I chose maybe in a couple of months, 6 months time to actually write a book, I think I would hire someone to coach me on writing a book. And I would hope that person could double up and be an editor as well to writing a book. Because I think my style, I've got a particular style of writing, which is more like my spoken language. Unless I really tailor it and really think about it and go back and revise it, which you probably need to do writing a book. But and so for me, I think it would be really advantageous to get a coach to help me with writing a book. But how do you feel about the sort of book writing?
So I'm in the same boat. I like to write the way I speak or think. I want people to connect with my ideas and my thoughts in a way to better them or influence them. And I even did a solo podcast yesterday on this. I got B's and B minuses in grammar and spelling, but what's more important is my message. So I am hiring somebody to help me get through some of those I's and T's crossing, and then the mechanics and suggestions and best approaches, self-publishing through somebody else, how to market it, pre-marketing, post-marketing, and all that technical stuff, getting ready for a mobile device and Amazon. I'm a smart person, I could figure it out, but that's not the best use of my time.
Exactly. And that's something I'm really I'd like, so everyone who's listening to this, I quit my job on Friday, or my last day was Friday. So now technically I'm an entrepreneur. And it's really interesting that I was having a chat with someone on Sunday, and he was saying, you'll get to a point where you will outsource to other people because you will have higher generating tasks that you need to do. That will be, because at the moment I'm kind of a solopreneur. I kind of do everything myself, and I've got involved in every aspect of it. But he's like, no, you will get to a point quite quickly where you'll be like, actually, it makes more sense to outsource to someone, and then I can do something different. So you've actually written quite a lot of publications. I saw you've written not books. I don't think you've written any books yet, but you've written publications. So what for you is your process of writing at the moment? How do you get yourself in that mindset to write something, a journal or a publication?
Yeah, maybe I should ask my husband in the other room right now. First of all, I kick him out. we make sure the dog has been fed, doesn't need to go out, so he's nice and quiet. And I will get in my comfy clothes, and I will get rid of everything that I need to do and go to a very quiet place and get in flow. And I have to be inspired by an idea. It has to be early in the day for me to write, have an idea, be inspired, and sometimes put the headphones on and just create. And it is one of those surreal events that when I'm done writing or creating, don't check my grammar or my spelling or even sentence structure. Time passes. It's very eerie. And when I'm done, I come out almost like I've come up from underwater and look at what I've just created. And it is a masterpiece. And yes, I will have to go back and do some edits, but it's just getting in a quiet place and just getting into a flow of creativity, which a lot of entrepreneurs have. But when we're tied down by the corporate environment, we don't have any way to unleash that. But silence, stillness, and then just getting into the zone is the way I create.
And how many times do you edit? Do you need to only edit once, or do you edit once, put it down, edit twice, 3 times? How many sort of, do you run it past your husband? Do you?
No. I got over being a perfectionist. And sometimes when I push the button, if I post it on LinkedIn or post it on my website, I'll go back and read it and say, oops, there's a spelling error. Go back in, do a quick edit. And, I'm not writing this. I am writing for certain people. But, if you ever go through these exercises where if you read a paragraph, but the words are incorrectly spelled between the first and the last letter, people don't read every single letter in the word in the sentence that you write. People will scan the sentences in the paragraph and they'll get the message. And that's what I'm going for. Don't judge me on my writing. I'll pay somebody else to edit that. But I usually write once, a quick little edit. I push the button and publish. I get over myself. And I'll strive for perfection a little bit more the next time. But my message and writing is more important.
I think that's really good. So let's just move on to, you told me that you were going to come a little bit later because you were a mastermind, or I can't remember the situation you said during the mastermind. So suddenly, because we were talking about coaches and mentors, I suddenly thought, well, there is a third strand, which is masterminding. So tell me about your mastermind and how it helps.
Well, okay, so I'm in 2 masterminds. Thank you for asking. They are both in podcasting. It feeds my creative soul. So I am with one, which is with my current production company, launching a podcast with Mario Mar. And we meet once a month. We share the newest things that are happening with the company, things we should consider, ways to monetize, and then we share ideas. And that's good. But you know what? I've learned that you should also seek other masterminds. So I came across another one, Ethan Janey. He's been on my podcast as well. They just started about 2 months ago. And I'm with a completely different set of podcasters. And I'll tell you, they are light years ahead of me. They're like 3, 4, 5 years ahead of me. And sometimes I feel a little uncomfortable. I don't know what CPMs or CPGs or whatever some of these things are. But you know what? Unless you put yourself in a place where people are so far ahead of yourself, you're never going to advance quickly. So now I see like, ooh, I got to quickly figure out or know what it's like to start getting sponsors for my podcast or whatever. I'm actually getting a completely set of different skills and another network in the area of podcasting. So I think 2 masterminds has been very helpful and enlightening for the work that I'm doing.
It's great to be in a mastermind where you're not the cleverest person in the group.
Yes. I'm like back in grade school. I'm not the smartest person in the room anymore. It's a little uncomfortable. And I'm in the chat box saying, what does this mean? Can I see you afterwards? So but it's okay. That's the way you grow.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I wouldn't have caught. So there's a London podcast network, and they meet once a month, I think it is. And I went to a few of these pre-COVID, so it was face-to-face, but they're now doing it on Zoom. And it was really interesting because I went there having done, I don't know, 150, 200 podcasts, something like probably 150 podcasts. So I'd done a few, I kind of worked out. And for me, it was a voyage of exploration rather than get there at the fastest point, which I probably would do now. But it's interesting. That group I would now kind of describe as a sort of mastermind. It's not deemed as that. It's deemed as a networking event. But actually, you actually sit around and you talk about the experiences that you had, the things that have gone well, things that didn't go well. Someone who's the most experienced will talk about a different hosting platform which is really good, or a really good way to put sales or marketing or whatever it is. And it's really interesting because I actually dropped out. I haven't been for quite some time now, and actually I kind of stopped because I kind of felt that I wasn't getting that much value because I was kind of at the top end of the experience, and there were some people that literally never done a podcast but really wanted to. But I might explore that group again, as you say, because it kind of makes me think that actually it's more of a mastermind than a networking event, because your network is only in the sense of, oh, listen to my podcast, and they go, oh, what's it about? And you talk about it, and that's all well and good. But actually, that mastermind where actually you're bringing lots of ideas and lots of thoughts into one place with multiple people rather than a one-to-one can actually be quite exciting and quite interesting as well, as a different technique of learning rather than a sort of one-to-one where coaching tends to be.
Yeah. Depending on where you're at, you can pick and choose what makes sense to yourself. You, again, have the benefit of networking, connecting with them offline, and maybe even building a relationship, but being slightly uncomfortable because you don't know all the things that you could or should be doing, and it gives you a place to explore, experiment, try some things out, but nobody's holding your feet to the fire like a coach or maybe a mentor does from accountability perspective. It's a safe environment to explore new things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to move on because I'm not sure if Mental Health Week is actually this week or it was last week in the UK. So we're going to just touch on it because it's sort of the right sort of time of the year in the UK anyway. So what does mental health mean to you from either a personal or professional reflection?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hi, I'm Alex, the host of X Health Show, Meet the Future of Healthcare. Think X-Men, that's X Health. Actual superheroes behind programming living cells to cure cancer once and for all. Tech that detects preterm delivery in seconds, brain-computer interface, or apps that employ AI to match you, your disease, with the best treatment. X Health Show brings to you visionaries who push the boundaries of healthcare from Switzerland, the heart of Europe and the most innovative country in the world. Let me introduce you to their startups. Head to X Health Show, Meet the Future of Healthcare. Happy to greet you there.
Mental health. There's so many dimensions on that, but maybe I'll just talk about how I'm feeling right now. I've always had a positive attitude. Negativism just never has served me. I will go to places of having poor me's every once in a while. I have learned to acknowledge it. If you are not feeling well or out of sorts, don't try to refute it. I've learned to acknowledge it and again, I got this from another podcast guest. If you allow to just understand the energy of why you're not mentally feeling fit, acknowledge it, and then how quickly you get through it is then the resiliency. But from what I'm dealing with right now is occasionally I get negative energy, external influences that don't align with my values, even though I've tried to be very emotionally intelligent. I know I'm being very politically correct, emotionally intelligent to compartmentalize the input, how I receive information and how I'm triggered and react to it. You know, sometimes it just takes a lot of energy. I'm actually at a point where I'm tired of trying to be so emotionally intelligent, to the point where from a mental health perspective, I simply put boundaries for situations and people that don't serve me. And that's how I deal with it right now.
It's a really interesting thing to just explore because I totally agree. If you're having a bad day or it's a bad day, and I think a lot of people who will be listening to this going through COVID, people have had seriously bad days and struggles. But I think you're absolutely right to accept it and not necessarily beat yourself up about it. Because what I would do is if I was having a low energy day, I kind of mentally, internally beat myself up about it. But now I've kind of learned, well, yes, I'll go and I'll walk to the corner shop and get a cup of coffee and have a nice conversation with the people that I have at the coffee shop or something like that, just to take me out of that particular place where you are. Because then, as you say, you can just kind of go over and over and over and beat yourself up about it. I don't want to sort of put you in any sort of tricky situations with your job or anything, but I'm just to touch on the negative influences that you have at work. You're being incredibly resilient and strong, I think, of saying that sometimes people impact your mental health and they're not great. They're not fueling you. They're taking something away. If you don't want to go into specifics, but when someone that you've had a difficult conversation with or has been a negative influence on you, do you step away? Do you do something else? Do you go and have a chat with your husband? Do you go for a walk? What's your sort of mechanisms to sort of resolve when it's not just you just having a bad day, someone's influencing that bad state that you're in?
Well, you've definitely checked the box on all of that. So when I feel negative energy, I will outwardly say I'm feeling negative. I'm just letting my husband, I'll tell, I'm not feeling good and this is why. If nothing else, that's the first step, just to acknowledge it. And I will let him know and he will stay away from me. Or I will take a walk and listen to my music. And when I come back, I'm a completely different person. Occasionally, if I'm receiving negative energy, I may tell that person why and cut the conversation short. Because I also learned to be a little bit transparent. I can't hold back anymore. I'm too old for that. And then I put boundaries around conversations. If there's a person that's negative energy, we'll keep it lighthearted. If nothing else, because the relationship may be more important to maintain, but let's keep the conversation cordial so we don't perpetuate the negative energy. And yeah.
I was just going to say that so coming from a corporate environment for 14, 15 years, I've been in that environment, stepping carefully when you're treating other people and politically saying the right things or sometimes not voicing your opinion. And it's really interesting. That's one of the things that I think I will enjoy most is that I'm just going to tell people my opinion. Like, I'm not going to be rude to anyone. I'm not going to go out of my way to upset anyone. But equally, I don't have a boss I have to invest a relationship in. I'm the boss. Oh, well, no, I don't know. Like, my wife's the boss.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. The only other thing is, and again, this is part of my journey. So, I'm still an entrepreneur too, or I'm still figuring things out. I have learned to let my hair down. I mean, I know that you and I are having a very cordial, professional conversation here, sharing a little bit between ourselves, but I'll also say a curse word. Like, I'm starting, at least amongst close family and friends, just really letting it out, saying what I feel. I used to be scared of saying what I wanted to say for fear of retaliation or conflict. I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with that. I'm finding if we just let it out sooner, quicker, if you have a good relationship with somebody, you can resolve it, get through it, and be in a better place when you're done. So mental health is also taking a little bit about risk-taking and saying actually what's really on your mind.
Totally agree. Right, so sort of on from mental health, is there a challenge that you've got at the moment that you're dealing with, and how are you approaching that challenge?
Where do you want me to start? When you and I show up on social media, our posts, whatever it is, we look like we have our act together. To tell you the truth, and again, we believe in what we do. It is our belief in the product and service that we're providing for others or companies. That's what drives us. But to tell you the truth, I am scared as heck about cash flow. I am constantly, as a business owner, I am looking. Unfortunately, I upselled a client that I have a very good relationship. I have income now through the end of December. but we're constantly worrying, how much should I be investing in building more connections to try to drive revenue versus maybe just taking it easy and not pushing so hard. But at the end of the day, there is the finances and even the decision, when do I invest in that coach? You know, companies that have material things that they generate always have material expenses and people expenses, but it's just us. But somehow we're so much more tight with the money that if we just want to spend a couple €1,000 or pounds or dollars on getting somebody to maybe do some of that administrative work, we have a hard time letting go. But we have to make those investments in order to have that peace of mind, to be able to explore new ways of making revenue. So I'm constantly worried about the next check. So if nothing else, a good side effect, we're socking away the money. We're saving every penny right now because we don't know where the next gig is going to come from. That's real life.
So it's really interesting. So I was very late to the party on reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Okay.
Literally, it was in the last 6 months or so, and it's just been a complete revelation for me. And one of the major things that he talks about is building assets, and for him, assets were property, and that was one of the ways that he was able to scale his business. But essentially, he then said, I also have online programs which are assets. I also have all these other sort of programs and sort of teachings that he does. And I think it's a really interesting point because one of the reasons why I was able to take this step was by actually having and acquiring assets. So I invested a bit into property as well. And although property is not ideal in so many ways, there's so many challenges, there's so many things to agonize about. But once it's up and running, it's essentially relatively passive income. It's not passive in the purest sense, but essentially there's always a bill where you've got to get a double glazing or something breaks or something like that. That's you have to accept that. But being able to have assets which actually build you money has taken a little bit of the pressure of this transition over into entrepreneur. And I would suggest to you to think about sort of assets as a way of being able to have passive income and build yourself a fund that you're not worried. Like you say, you're okay till December, but like then you've then got to think about now what January's coming up and what the pipeline and things like that. So it's hard. It's a really hard one because that next check is crucially important. But yeah, just thinking about assets.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Mark, I listened to all those episodes that you played about the assets, and it gave me some validity. I do have an online course, but you talk about what are the challenges. Didn't get some people to sign up in the first round, getting ready to remarket it, learning from the past and how to reposition it. Those are all things that we're always thinking about. I wonder how we actually get sleep at night. But that is the reason why I have a consulting business. I started the online course. I am now, by accident, but almost intentional, I may be also starting one-on-one mentoring or coaching as another stream of income. So I am trying to diversify all at the same time. And that's why sometimes I don't sleep.
Well, I've made a decision. So I've got five areas of things that I'm involved in straight away. Like, it's funny, when I was leaving, people were saying, oh, you're going to take a couple of weeks off. I'm like, God, like Monday morning, I've got a sales call. Then I've got to do that. They're like, oh, I thought you might have a couple. It's like, well, no, I just, you don't have that. But so for me, 5 things is enough. And if anything else comes up outside those 5 things, I'm actually going to say no, because the thing I'm slightly worried about is that I've got too many things and too many like hats to have on at different times. And actually, it's a sort of perverse fear, because I actually really enjoy that variety, and something happening at the house, I have to go on a call and do something with that. So for me, I like the variety, but I've equally realised that another project on top of the 5 that I've got will possibly tip me over the edge, and I won't be as effective as I can. So how many things do you do you sort of look after?
Consulting. I've got 2 consulting clients right now. The podcast. I do a lot of podcasting. Online course, so that's always in development. Clearing my calendar and getting ready to write the book. And I would say the 5th category is everything else. I do speaking events for my professional organizations. I'm on the board of at least 2 or 3 different organizations. So that probably is the 5th thing. Doesn't generate revenue, but definitely expands the network.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right, we're gonna jump now. Who was the person that inspired you most as a child?
No one.
No one inspired you?
The only thing I can think about were my grandmothers, because it's not necessarily what they said or did, but I find that there are characteristics of who they were that I carry in myself.
Right.
So I had one grandmother that was always entertaining, always very caring. You walk in the door, there's food on the table, and I do the same in my home life. The other one was very elegant and had presence. And even long before I even understood what executive presence was, there was always the air of always looking well-dressed and successful. Even if they were poor, they still put on that air. And I would say that aura, that presence, has an impact on me as well. So my 2 grandmothers.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah. So you didn't have anyone, a teacher, a sports person, someone, an author? Was there never anyone that really, as a child, you were just like, oh, I just would love to do that, whatever that was, sport, in history?
Yeah. You know, you're looking for that eureka moment. You know, why did I become an engineer? Why did I write? Why do I talk so much? You know, I honestly, and I have thought hard about this. Yes, I had great math teachers. I was a STEM student. I went into engineering. I've read some good books, but I'll tell you, I don't remember anybody that had an impact on me until about 10 years ago when I was moving up in one of my companies and somebody was retiring who I really respected. And it sticks out in my head. I said, I'm trying to get ahead in my career. What should I be doing differently to set myself up? He said, don't change anything. Just be yourself. Nice. And I was always aspiring to be something, somebody else, what corporate said I should be and do. But the first time somebody said, just be yourself. Because for everybody else and everything else, I was never quite good enough, even though I always surged ahead. But this person said, just be yourself. And I don't think I embraced that till many years later, but I truly know now I am being myself.
That's such an interesting point, because I never really behaved like myself until well into my 30s. Like you're when you're a child, you're influenced by parents, and teenager, you might be a teacher, it might be an author, it might be someone you get obsessed with, a musician or whatever, and then you go into those 20s, which are really hard because you're transitioning from education into a job or a career or entrepreneur or whatever it is, and their exploration is as much as anything else. And I would say until I got to probably 31 or 32, it wasn't really where I was suddenly like, well, do you know what? I'm just going to be myself now, because it was interesting reading someone that said something, there is no one else like you. You are completely unique, and you have a story to tell, and you should tell your story, not someone else's, or your interpretation of someone else's story. Yeah. And that was incredibly powerful for me when I was around like 31 or 32, 30, 31, 32, because suddenly I realized that actually I have qualities. I have things that are good and positive, and I think that moment, it can happen when in your 20s, it can happen in your 30s, sometimes it happens in your 60s or whatever. I think it's an exploration time, but just really realizing that you're your best advocate, and you need to tell your story. I think is really important.
And that's it. I mean, I think I had to be my own inspiration. I always had drive to move forward, to either move away from or move towards something. And so that's why I just had to figure things out. And there was really nobody to model. Yes, great leaders, great teachers. You learn things along the way, but that inspiration, like, wow, there's only a few along the way. But I'll tell you, podcasting, I'm meeting quite a few inspirational people and that's why I do it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
100%, 100%. I feel very, like, people think, I feel very selfish sometimes about doing podcasts because I get to interview some amazing people, including yourself, who tell their story, tell about how to get to success. And for me, it's an amazing sort of side hustle where you can get and speak to some really amazing people. So I 100% agree with that. What was your inspiration of doing your podcast initially?
I, first of all, was a guest once back in February 2019 on, it was actually purely educational. This person put out a call for guests because he was building a library of podcast interviews from different professions to service the high school systems, the secondary system, so that they would know who and how to get to where I was an engineer. I went into manufacturing, and I was so taken aback by it. Wow, this was fun being interviewed. And so then I started searching for other podcasts to be interviewed on. And then it got to the point where I was tired of chasing and waiting for somebody to give me permission to speak. And so I got fed up and I said, I want to speak when I want to and no longer asking permission. And podcasting was the entryway for me not only to speak, but also speak with others.
Yeah, it's an amazing pastime. I think it's, as I said, I just feel blessed that people still want to turn up and have conversations with me. So, right, moving on. Do you have a morning routine?
Yeah, it's not too exciting. Wake up, put the dog out, start the coffee, and I do sit and think a few minutes and then just go through my agenda. I don't journal. I tried that. Just having my quiet time in the morning. I'll always get up at least an hour before anybody else gets up in the house. And when I have my quiet and I clear off my calendar, get ready for the day, and just have time to myself to think about the day and how I feel. That's my morning routine. And as soon as I get done mending a fractured ankle, I'll also be walking the dog again in the morning. That too, listening to podcasts just like yours will get me in the right mood for the day.
How did you hurt your ankle?
It was not glorious. I stepped off the front stair the wrong way, 90 degrees. It wasn't pretty.
Ow.
So, but hey, I am cleared for curling probably in about 2 weeks' time. So I'm on the mend, and I'll be mind on task from now on.
Well, good luck with your recovery.
Yeah.
So it's interesting about morning routines because you've got people like Tim Ferriss, and you hear people who get up at 5 o'clock and then meditate and exercise and coffee and journaling. And do you know what? Like, unless these people go to bed at like 8 o'clock at night in the evening, which I think some of them actually do. I actually think some people actually do that. I just don't know how they've got the not the inspiration, but just to get up and it's a really interesting one. And I'm wondering how I'm going to change within my morning routine, because my morning routine was very reactive. It was get the kids, like my wife would help with the kids, and she'd take them to school. And working from home, it was totally different again from traveling an hour to get into work and stuff like that. So now I've got a little bit more freer time to explore that. I think I'm going to try. I've tried journaling. I don't get journaling. It's like I want to
react here.
Like it sounds. Now I'm going to come across so badly here, but I'm going to say it. I'm just going to say it. Gratitude lists, right? I have a huge problem with writing down every day something that I'm grateful. Now, I'm grateful for my family, for that we live and we work and they go to school, and I'm grateful for all that. I'm grateful for my dog. I love my dog to pieces. I'm grateful that I get to do things like this. But I started trying to write the 3 things every day that I was grateful for. And I don't know if it's because I was in the corporate, which is quite routine, and every day it's 9 till 5, sitting at your desk doing your job. But I really found gratitude lists really difficult because I wasn't sure what I should be saying.
So here's my reaction. The gurus get paid because they're gurus and people will listen to them.
Yeah.
But if you think about the intent of what they're saying, do you take any time out of your week for yourself to simply think versus do? Do you have control over your time? And if you do it, I take Friday afternoons off now, and Saturday and Sunday, and those are the times where I do some writing. I think, I take my walk. So who should be telling us you got to have this morning routine? Coffee and dog and sit down and figure out your day is all I need. But how and when you do it really should be up to you.
I think that's really, really interesting because, yeah, obviously at times I sort of take stock and do reflection. I've actually, my sort of reflections on situations, on interactions with people has actually increased quite a lot. Actually, I can do that sort of reflection relatively quickly now. I'm sort of trained my brain to be able to do that. And so when I have those moments, yeah, obviously, I think I am one of the luckiest people on this earth. And especially this entrepreneurial journey that I'm doing now, I think I'm blessed and lucky. It's not all been a bed of roses. There's been hard times as well, but I do feel blessed that I'm here and I can do all these things that I like to do. So you're absolutely right. You do have times of reflection when you're like, yeah, I'm lucky. I'm grateful. It might not be grateful. You might think yourself being lucky or fortunate or you're just pleased that you've got everyone around you. You've got a family around you. I think that's really powerful because I put out a podcast a couple of months ago, which was like the morning routine guilt, and that these gurus who are telling you that you should be grateful every day and stuff like that are making people feel hugely guilty that they're not finding between 5 and 5:30 enough time to be able to journal and meditate and exercise and cook breakfast for the whole family and whatever. So I think the guilt is a really damaging thing that people need to think about as well.
Yeah, so we need to take control over, read between the lines. The intention is we need to find place, time, and space to do those activities.
Yeah.
But who dictates they have to be in the morning? It could be mid-morning when you get up from your desk, you walk the dog, you listen to podcasts or music. That's your gratitude time. That's your thinking time. That's your reflection time.
Yeah, I think walking the dog is going to be a keen. Because if something annoys me, if something frustrates me, if I need a break, I need a good 20, 30-minute quick walk with the dog. He loves an hour. We actually did, on my first day of being an entrepreneur, me and my wife went out for a walk for about an hour and a quarter with the dog this afternoon. I'd freed up a couple of hours because she wanted to do that. And so, yeah, and when you're doing that and you're walking there, having a chat, no agenda on either of us. It was so, in a weird way, it's a little bit spiritual in the sense that you were kind of had the freedom and the sort of ability to be able to control your life and do some of the things that you enjoy. So I think we all need to do that a little bit more, whether it's at the weekend or whether it's early in the morning, whatever it is, we should try and find that time.
Yeah.
Feel grateful, but not feel such the pressure that you have to do all these.
We don't need it anymore. We've had it. We choose when to do what we want, when we want, and enjoy the pleasures, the reflection when it makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the interview, and I always ask people 6 questions at the end of the podcast.
Wait, you told me 5. Now it's 6?
No, there's actually 5. Sorry, I usually do 6 with the first interview. So the second interview that I've done with other people, I didn't have these quick fire questions, but I created some new ones for you, Deb. I thought I would do some quick fire ones. Honestly, they're absolutely fine. There's no hidden thing here. Right, first one. Do you listen or do you read books? Do you do audiobooks or do you read, or both?
I'm reading books now.
You're reading again.
Oh, absolutely. When I had long commutes in my car, definitely all audiobooks. Sometimes when I was walking a lot, but now I really like having paper or Kindle. Yeah.
What's the favorite part of your day?
When I'm alone. I'm so sorry. I mean, I love my family. When I'm alone, because I'm an extrovert, but I do need my re-energizing time with no noise, because I'm engaging with people all day. I need that quiet time. Otherwise, stay away from me. I'm not going to be fun that day.
When are you most creative?
Morning, during that creative quiet time. When nobody's around, I'm in my thoughts. That's my meditation. I do amazing writing during that time. Absolutely amazing.
Excellent. So we've kind of touched on this. How do you plan your day or week? How do you get your agenda for the day together?
Okay, let's go there. You got another hour? No, this is the year of being disciplined. I have my 5-year roadmap in a Google Sheet. I have it yearly, monthly, weekly, daily, and I am reflecting every single day, giving myself a scorecard, green or red, that I accomplished the goal. And if I'm behind, it gets on the agenda. So I'm very disciplined and stay focused every day. And that is part of that reflection time in the morning about what did I do yesterday? What worked? What do I need to do today? What do I need to schedule to stay on track?
And do you find now things don't slip?
I'm about 80%. Things will always slip. Don't beat myself up. But I am used to be 40% would slip. Now it's maybe only 20%. And I'm trying out a new technique. So maybe only 5% slips.
That's brilliant. That is brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, I describe myself as an optimistic pragmatist. Are you an optimist or a pragmatist?
What do you mean by just practical?
Pragmatic in the sense of you don't have a set like doctrine that you think of. So for me, being a pragmatic optimist is that I'm an optimist. I see the positive. I try and see the positive in most situations, but I'm not naive. I've been around the block a few times. As a pragmatist, I see when people aren't genuine or when things have not worked out the way that I'm pragmatic that I'll have to adapt to that situation next time.
Yeah, I think I'm more of an optimist than a pragmatist, because I think pragmatist is what held me back in many years, and so now I see the opportunity, and it's for me to try to figure out how to get around anything that potentially is an obstacle. Yes, I'll always think about the practicality. I won't go off the cliff and do something wrong, but because that's the engineer, I'm always thinking. But I think I'm more shifting towards the optimist, because I trust I will find a way. I just have to set my mind in the right direction.
I think that's a wonderful way to end this conversation. I think that's I think that's been brilliant. Thank you, Deb. Thank you so much again for joining me on my podcast. We'll have to play number 3 at some stage. We'll have to think about it.
Absolutely. My pleasure, and enjoy the good life now.
Thank you so much. Pleasure. Cheers.
Pleasure.